And welcome back yet again, ladies and gentlemen, to some more Proving Grounds action right here on the LCS. Yet again, I'm Ravishing here by Dean Rebel Fox Merrick, though. Dean, we're in for our second series of the night. But before we get into all that, did you have any words for our previous competitors? You wanted to, if anybody, let's say, missed the first series?
Yeah, so 100 Thieves just took a 2-0 over top of Evil Genius's Academy. It was a pretty good win, too, to say the least. Got capped off with a nice pentakill from the side of 100 Thieves. So big props to them being able to continue on in the tournament. And they end up getting to take on the winners of tomorrow's match. Of course, you'll get a chance to see that. Two of our semi-professional teams that are both very, very good between... Wildcard Red and, of course, Resolve that are going to be up against the likes of 100 Thieves. Should be a very interesting match eventually.
Fun time indeed. But speaking of semi-pro, we do have exactly that kind of matchup going up into the next right now. We got AOE going up against Supernova, right? We do believe this matchup to be really just the heart of semi-pro in general, especially alongside Supernova, who, this team has been here for so long, representing this entire amateur side at AOE, like newcomers in the scene, but have really made their impact.
Yeah, I think to say that Supernova is the heart of amateur is almost an understatement. We had this stat given to us earlier today that 19% of the players that are here at Proving Grounds, or at least, and players that were in and about Academy from everywhere, have been on Supernova. Supernova is a talent pipeline for Academy. It is insane the number of players they've been able to put forth. Even players that have gone up into LCS have been from an organization like this. And so their representation, they missed last split, unfortunately, is happy to see that they were able to kind of clutch up. They beat CLG Academy to get here, being the first ever team to drop an Academy team before Proving Grounds had actually showed up. While they did have to take on Team Liquid Academy, you're sure that they're going to be able to put up a fight against AOE, another one of our semi-professional teams here.
So there's a lot to keep in mind, though, as we are heading into draft right away between these two teams. Though we're looking a lot, especially the jungle matchup in this game too. So we do expect a lot of focus being going over there, especially between Maddie and RBM, both very talented junglers. And speaking of things we wanted to see, this Stet Lilia band away makes sense. That's a respect over to Maddie, one of his signature picks in the jungle.
Yeah, the cool parts is the similarities between these two is both of them can be kind of the early game focus for their team, wanting to generate a bunch of the pressure. Both of them have very unique picks, one of them being, of course, the Lilia, the other being the Kha'Zix for RBM. So Maddie's Lilia, one of the best on the server. RBM, even back in the day, was a Kha'Zix player, which, of course, those two could fit together rather well as one's a cat. Which would have been cool to see. But the importance that these two bring, also having been newer additions within the last year, within the last two splits of Proving Grounds, they've really kind of come quite a distance in being able to develop themselves. So these are two of the next junglers on the block when it comes to who's going to be moved up to Academy and things of that sort.
Considering right now, we do have to see what they decide to pick to see how far they can further their expectations. Right now, the B1 LeBlanc, those are something we actually did kind of expect. The B1 LeBlanc has definitely been just one of the most prominent picks on the blue side, right? And given that Strumpus early on will already give him a lot more agency in the game. Strumpus as well, too, one of the strongest players in this roster. Although his signature picks, wait, no. There's absolutely no way. It's a hover. We have 15 seconds. No. But this right here might not be. This is a Zyko special. He's teasing us, Dean. I don't like it. Let's talk about the Aphelios that they took in response. But this, as actually more expected, as Darkmoons has played this before, as a neutralizing lane into the LeBlanc.
Yeah, so the combination, the point out of the Yuumi is a nice little poke to Supernova's support, which had come about before. Clyde stepped in for specifically this tournament and was able to kind of come in as a newer player, newer addition as Proving Grounds. They needed him to come in and has been kind of the pinch hitter for the support role here for the likes of Supernova. Area of Effect, they grabbed this kind of comfort team fighter in the likes of the Aphelios for Sketch Dreams, one of his more popular champions. And I like that they grab a very kind of... what I would call skill intensive. It used to be kind of a direct matchup where Lissandra is just going to beat LeBlanc most of the time, but I've seen this matchup flop actually much more heavily into LeBlanc's favor. Not to the point where she's just perma-winning, but to the point where it does require a bit more kind of ability here from the likes of the Lissandra to really put on the pressure that you would want.
Speaking of pressure, though, we do have the Troll King picked up on side of Supernova. So Maddie, right, just pretty much blind picking his jungler instead. Although Trundle pretty solid pick, there are definitely a lot of options that can go into it. As okay, Basil decides to opt in for the Camille v Jace matchup. Right now, this is very interesting. Jace is also a very like resource intensive top laner too, if played towards expectations. And this matchup can get very volatile. We've seen it in a lot of different teams. So top side too might be one to watch going out throughout the entire game, as you do have likely a lot of bans focused towards ADCs, as Supernova has not picked theirs yet.
What I would like to see here, honestly, from AOE is to have something for RBM that is really able to break out mid lane. Not only is it good to try to put some pressure into LeBlanc in this matchup nowadays, which we'll get a chance to expound on later, but if Lissandra is able to kind of interact with the map in a significant way, specifically up towards top lane, that is a matchup that can go into Camille's hands very easily, which is the smallest amount of pressure put onto that top side. And it can create a side lane that's very difficult for Jace to try to kind of live in, since Jace, when he's put behind, is already going to be bad. When he's put behind into a split pusher or like a 1v1er type champion in the likes of, or the vein of what a Camille would do, it's very tough to kind of come back in a game like this. It requires much more scaling items down the road, and we'll rely on them going for team fight, which is not probably what Supernova is hoping with this Jace pick to accomplish. So breaking out Darkwings, letting him interact with the map, and specifically heading up to top lane could be a very easy way for Area of Effect to try to help some of the early game pressure that they were lacking last week against C9 Amateur.
Considering right now, right, although nothing really picked up in the mid lane, though, with the rights taken away, more respect given over to AOE as they do take out the Cosmos pick along with the Viego. So they don't want to give anything RBM can just like immediately snowball on. So instead, they will save the jungle pick for final, as they're hovering the Leona right now. And honestly, Leona alongside the Aphelios, still quite solid, offers a lot more engage options, especially with the Camille and the Lissandra. I mean, just to see what Supernova decides to pick into it. Nautilus still up, and so is the Rakan.
Both of them are available. I'm actually curious whether Trundle can even put into that position. I wonder if they'd be willing to put it into that position. They were trying to bait out a jungle pick at like R4 or something like that and wait for the support pick, but I don't think they ended up taking the bait. I think it is just going to end up being a Trundle jungle, as the Jhin is the response. Kind of a more controlling pick down for the bottom side. Easier to access early, good wave clear with like Q, and especially if you go into lethality, very easy to try to control your wave. That, I do believe, will end up being a support Galio, almost certainly. So a nice little interesting pick into Leona. Good for counteracting when she presses E, press the taunt. You kind of CC her into Oblivion. And helps with some of the roaming strategies. It helps LeBlanc go a little bit deeper, set up that kind of play. Jace for the same way. There's a lot of engage range with a combination of Jhin and then a Galio being able to help out some of the divers, set up some of these angles to push them into different areas.
Okay. I'm gonna wait and hold. Okay, I was about to say like there's no way it's an actual Kindred because they don't have a ton of prio in many other lanes, and yep, they go ahead and pick the Xin Zhao instead, right? So, but touching a bit on the point you said here, Dean, as we have the entire roster locked in and all the picks for all of these teams, right? Going back to what both Maddie and RBM are able to accomplish, right? Both these guys are, like you were saying, the engines for the team. They're there to bridge the gap from the first 15 minutes to make sure that, especially for AOE, they can get into those 5v5 team fights, something they're very proficient at and something they're really looking to do.
And something they've set up pretty well. If you get onto 3+ items when you're considering what an Aphelios is able to do, a Lissandra even in these fights is able to do, they can do some pretty mean AoE tricks into teams that have like the Jace, the Jhin, things like that, that don't have like the most mobility to try to get away, especially from Lissandra, who's got all this hard CC. But I do feel like Maddie actually is on a champion that has a bit more impact. I'm a little shocked that they went for the Xin Zhao. This has commonly actually been picked the other direction. When Xin Zhao first got buffed and found his way into the meta here inside of Academy and inside of like semi-professional, things like that, Trundle was the counter pick that first kind of got adapted. Everything else was like, oh, it's powerful, so we're going to take it. Against the Xin Zhao wasn't working great. Trundle was the first like, this isn't powerful, or this wasn't powerful, but now that Xin Zhao's around, we're going to take this into it as a counter pick, and it was working out. Then it slowly got kind of more popular. Everybody remember Trundle's a good champion, the pillar got buffed, things like that, and he's kind of slid into his own inside of this meta. But it's surprising that RBM has opted into that matchup for like the early game, where you're trying to break out Darkwings very quickly into this like LeBlanc matchup, where if you can affect your side lanes, all of a sudden Ophelia snowballing, Camille snowballing is difficult to slow down from Supernova.
consider the snowball they have set up for themselves, right? We know that onside of Supernova, like they're definitely going to be looking to neutralize as much as they can, like just to make sure that AOE doesn't have the chance to get to where they want to go to get that team fighting stage. And even if once the 50 minutes hits, they're at least at a break point where they'll be confident in taking those 5v5s between these two teams. So I'm very excited personally to see, especially what this Jhin can do because of the setups we have, right? You have a lot of CC on the side of Supernova, a fair amount of slows, but I am interested as to see how Strompiss will actually try to attack out of AoE, considering like they do have the Leona there for the support along with the Xin Zhao. So plus some possible and potential flanks on both ends though. But DPS left pretty much to both Strompiss and mainly Cozy, so this Jace has to get ahead.
It is interesting to think about how single target focused that this composition from Supernova really is, because Jhin doesn't have a bunch of kind of multi-target hit in any fashion whatsoever. LeBlanc isn't great at dealing with multiple targets unless she's going to like double distortion on top of a bunch of people at once, and like that usually even still doesn't do all that much when you're more so focusing for like the double sigil and things like that to mark down one opponent. So then, like you said, Cozy's the one doing a lot of the kind of the team fighting damage, where it's like multiple targets, being able to focus people down with auto attacks, things like that, working your way one target to the next instead of finding one. There's a lot of ways to deny that damage from AoE, where it's like, okay, you'll have Zhonya's an ultimate from the likes of Darkwings, you'll have the ultimate from RBM to deny some damage from the Jhin or the LeBlanc if they're outside of the zone, and then you've got like ultimate from the likes of the Camille, which can at least break a combo that is coming out from one of the two of them. And so there's that to consider too, where Supernova, if they're able to focus down individual targets, find some pick tools with like LeBlanc over walls, use the Jhin for pickoffs, things like that, this is a lot easier than like trying to take a 5-on-5 from up close, where AoE can use some of these stalling tactics to really make a fight kind of messy.
And considering we'll have to see if that pick actually does come to fruition though, because especially up against AoE, right? It's like they're just going to try to get into the face of Supernova at any chance they get. And you mentioned the overall sacred target damage too, which like, although like maybe interesting, that does mean yet again they have to pour a lot of resources into making sure that these carries get ahead, is that they're able to have an impact, because like Galio is there for the lockdown, right? And consider he can't really flash taunt anymore, tragically, right? Maybe they're left a lot more to just respond everything AoE wants to bring out. But AoE on their end too is like also offer a lot of single target lockdown. But if they're able to leave the sketch streams on the backside and just free firing away, that means the AoE might certainly come out on top, but that's all speculation as we head into game number 1 between the heart of amateur teams.
I want to point out also that Clyde is somebody who has already been kind of somebody that's more adept to roaming. This has come from not only stints on Supernova in the past, he's been on this team multiple times, as well as from Collegiate, where he plays for Harrisburg. He's kind of known for roaming on those champions. The Pike was huge against Team Liquid Academy, as it's one of his more favorite champions. There's another champion that you can make kind of global impact with that big ultimate. So Clyde wants to be out and about on the map again. I'm curious where Strompiss kind of pulls him, because Strompiss, at least we've been told quite a bit, especially some of the people in the chat and people watching might recognize Strompiss names as being like an old Academy player, and he is an Academy player from the past. He's the in-game leader, and he's been exceptional at making sure some of these younger players, people like Cozy, people like Maddie, people like Lynx, who haven't had a ton of super competitive experience, have really been up to snuff, helping this team out, being that leader for everybody, making sure that he's put himself into a place where they can rely on him. I'm curious if he is going to pull those resources for himself against the likes of this Lissandra, just trying to break open this mid lane. We know that these two are going to throw a bunch of damage at each other, both very mechanically inclined players. So having that support of your Galio, especially in very clutch times, could be very helpful for Stromfist in this matchup against the Lissandra, which is considered good for Lissandra in a lot of ways.
And just as mid-jungle duo in general, right, on both of these teams is definitely one to be able to watch as we continue throughout this game. Maddie and Stromfist are really together, considering how much experience they've had playing alongside each other. As we see Maddie paying an early visit to the top lane, we said it would be a bit more of a volatile matchup, but Basil, unfortunately, still level 1, gets poked down to get the shield back. Doesn't want to use the flash, doesn't have it. So there we go, taken down. First blood for Supernova.
Very quick pathing. That is literally one camp from Maddie into topside gank. He went red buff to top gank. How can you possibly know that this is going to show up? And Faisal, I mean, he's here, he gets pillared off. There's almost no way out. Even with a flash, he's probably not going to get out of this situation with the red buff, the pillar slow, everything else that had actually come about from the situation that he was in, but he doesn't even have flash because he went for the ignite and the teleport, which is pretty commonplace on the likes of Camille nowadays. But Maddie, very creative pathing, getting aggressive as fast as possible to topside, making sure this Jace is going to be in a good place.
Yeah, like I said it before too, the Cozy really needs to step up here in terms of single target damage Supernova wants to bring out. So if he's ahead in this lane, that means that suddenly all the squishies on AoE are going to have a bad time, and they don't particularly have a big tank either. And the Eclipse build from Jace definitely can put out a lot of damage. And I do feel bad for Faisal though, considering he was level 1, he even had the hook shot. Like, even if he wanted to run away, like, he just couldn't, and that sucks. But at the end of it, as he's a TP, doesn't lose much farm either, so he's perfectly fine though. I do want to take a quick look at the bot side though, because you see that yet again, Maddie go path to the bot lane, should be able to get the crab, but naturally so, Sketch and Zyko are being pushed in, so you could look for a potential dive, but the wave not really in their favor.
It's not. It's on their side, so they're able to kind of control at least a little bit of minions here, but it is still just 3-3. It should move out a little bit here after this. Thankfully, Lynx is able to throw some damage in just to prevent that from happening. There's just trades back and forth between the two. Before AD really starts to get developed, this Jhin won't have the best of wave clear for the most part, and obviously starting with the mind control tech of going boots, being able to dodge out on skill shots and such just to begin the laning phase as fast as possible. It means that Aphelios has at least a little bit better time inside of the very early laning phase when it comes to handling minions.
One thing too is the RBM was actually going over to the top side too. He gets spotted up by a ward right there at the end, which just expired there for Cozy. So they was looking for a potential regank in between the two, but right now Cozy they're able to continue to assert his dominance as the wave is pushing into him. So doing really well in terms of his overall matchup. What's up, B? What's up?
Man, Lynx is just, he went from mind control tech to just full mind control tech. He went for Swifties immediately in this lane. He's not having any of Zyko or any of the slows that can come out from the remainder of this team. Because you think about, like, you've got, like, the W coming out from Camille. You've got a couple of abilities like the W coming out from, RBM. You've got, like, Gravitum that's a possibility. You have also Dark Wings with the majority of his abilities.
Okay, they go in. Yeah, they lock one down, and yep. Perhaps it's going to be just one trade kill over. Yep, there we go. Maddie gets it. 2 chains also land on the backside to RBM. He looks to go in. Nice dodge as well, but he's still chasing this. He still wants it. Nice lockdown by the W. Deadly Flourish will stop any further trades.
A lot of members ended up on bottom side, but it was Zyko who ended up getting caught out just a little too far up. That catch potential from a Galio and a Jhin very early in the game, easy to access into melee champions, just because, again, if you got the Justice Punch, if you got the taunt, if you got the W from the Jhin, it's really easy to just capitalize on that very quickly when any of that CC lands whatsoever. And the rest of everybody else showing up was just kind of a little bit of a wave hello, a little bit of a party in the bottom lane for a second, because nothing else really came about from it, as it was teleports expended from both mid laners at one point very recently. They won't have those anytime soon.
Dark Wings goes a little far forward, looking to lock down Strumpus, but he reads the play coming in from a mile away as even Zyko roams up with this as well. So leaving Sketch Games a little bit on the back end. Clyde is here to try to respond for any potential play they make, but I mean, the wave's going to push in onto Strumpus, so it'll be perfectly fine as right now Zyko looks to just match down a shadow RBM and to get some more space in his jungle as look where he is, D.
Here he comes.
But instead they go in, bro. Nice little taunt back out. Dark Wings lives for a little bit longer, but
he's not getting out.
There is all that focus. And Dark Wings able to get out just barely with no mana at all. Instead, Zyko yet again with the sacrificial lamb on the backside. He's still so far forward. What, he lives?
Wow.
No way. Top back. Clyde gets a re-response though. So RBM was there and poke with the spear. Nice.
Whoa. I am astonished that he was able to pull a kill out of this situation. Things got so dicey there. There were 3 members on that Lissandra immediately, able to get the flash and the E to get out of that dodge as fast as possible. Then Zyko's in kill range, and it's like, okay, Zyko is pretty bad. His nifty little E getting him out of kind of dodge and preventing Strumpus from going back in. Now the top lane duel, and Faisal hit him.
Ooh. Just barely out of flash drain though. The ignite was also already expended. Hextech ultimatum gets the shield, and Faisal gets the solo bolo.
I don't know how he got baited into stepping that close, because like the level 6 was there from Faisal. He was in that duel, so he knew he didn't use it. Like Cozy perhaps just had a little bit of a brain fart right there. This was the duel between the two of them. Got really close. Flash got burnt immediately. He turned away. All he had to do was like turn around, pivot step immediately back in the level 6. Maybe he thought he could put some damage out, wasn't expecting like the immunity to come through as fast as possible. But Faisal, knowing he had the adaptive shield back up, was able to convert him in that play. Again, it feels like that was something that Cozy maybe could have avoided in the right situation. In fairness, his wave was kind of in a very rough situation with as even more fighting.
Yeah, they get the taunt off too, so it'll be a long cooldown as they're just scraping away from the dragon. And at least that first one picked up here for Supernova, just off of the back of that bot lane pushing in onto Sketch. Zeko was roaming for quite some time, so at least Supernova able to respond to the advantage they're creating around the other map. But Rift Herald is still up for now. It'll be interesting to see which one of the responds to the first, considering top lane is still in control of Faisal.
So far, it has been Supernova who are able to pull the first dragon off, and they found the first couple of kills. Both of them go on to Maddie on this Trundle, which was the expectation. Thankfully, RBM was able to make one response. That solo kill in the top lane as well for Faisal was pretty big for getting a bit of the gold back here for the likes of AOE, who currently command the gold advantage. I want to note that initial play that had gone down onto Faisal, which was, Maddie obviously finding that initial gank. The kill went on to Maddie, which means that you don't have that gold advantage for the Jace, and because of that, there was like no advantage that was generated for your top laner. It was just a denial from Faisal, who was able to TP pretty much for free, and now has found a solo kill. So now the Camille's actually in a really good position against the Jace, even though that first gank made it look like that lane could have been shifted in the favor of the Jace to begin with. Instead, Faisal is now the one that feels perfectly fine on the top side.
Speaking of being in a good position so far, we've seen roaming down, but RBN a little bit outnumbered. Darkness goes in, he's able to save his life for it now. The Addy's super tanky, and he locks him down in the prison, but he cannot get away from this. Unfortunately, Maddie, though, still quite big. A double kill for the Troll King. As Faisal looks to respond, could possibly get a double of his own, but Cozy knew he was there. There we go. Supernova get 3 for free.
I talked about the fact that Maddie had both the kills, and he is just obscenely fed. They walk in trying to contest against him, but they just don't have the damage to bring him down. Between RBM and Darkwings, they both end up basically getting brought down by just the Trundle alone. Even better, Strompus had showed up in this situation, was able to put some pressure on as well. You can see member by member just kind of traded in. RBM had to bounce as fast as he could after the AD got drained, almost had the nifty move to get out. Faisal here, like, he has good damage, but not quite enough to bring down Maddie, who's got this red buff and that passive off the death of the opponent. Got him another 100 health or so when you're turning back into Cozy like that, which is what prevents Faisal from securing that kill onto Trundle. One by one, they get focused down by the likes of the Troll King, currently sitting 4-0-1. Divine Sunderer in the inventory. Maddie wants to put this Trundle to the test in this early game.
And we said it here too, Dean. These are the players that keep the engines running on Supernova. Well, I should say, just run and move the engines from the early game, right? Maddie, being that jungler, bridging the gap between the early and that mid game, making sure that Supernova has a chance going towards that 15-20 minute mark. And I would say if this train is not going full speed, then I don't know what is. Because considering the lead he's already built up, you mentioned that the matchup is not super great going up against RBM, and you see Zyko paying a little visit to mid lane, but Maddie's definitely feeling himself, and with this massive force on the ground right now, on Summoner's Rift, Supernova, I have a real chance to just shut down AOE.
They do. They're doing very well in the early game. Again, this is to be expected. I think the Trundle was kind of intended to do this. The Xin Zhao does have a bit of team fighting potential and catch potential. Hoping Sketch Streams would be able to pull something. He did have Grafdom and Infernum right there, maybe. They're not the greatest of fighting guns, but at minimum they can lock somebody down for a fair amount of time. But given that Lynx has cleanse, maybe didn't want to commit to it. But again, AoE's composition eventually does do rather well with their AoE and multiple times, so they can do things. Denial of damage onto their frontliner is quite nice. Yeah, that's why they're such a good team fighting team, is they're named after AoE. That's what they do. So later on, this feels fine. It's just that Maddie is doing all the necessary things to start this game off to feel good. Best part about that last little skirmish, Cozy did pick up a kill. So while originally Faisal had gotten the kill, now Cozy's almost onto the Eclipse, so he's back into being a place where he probably feels comfortable throwing some Qs, throwing some abilities. Now Cozy.
Yeah, locks him down. There we go. There should be the run back yet again, but he can't go anywhere. And but RBM gets it. I mean, that's not bad. You still want your Zinjar to be a little bit strong, but yeah, if Camille gets him, then it's all the burst potential. Sketch streams though, one more shot could do it, and yep, has to use a flash to dodge it.
Oh.
But luckily spots Maddie with the ward though, or else that could have been very dangerous. Zyko there for the support to make sure his ADC does not die. And Strompus, man, they brought everybody to kill him.
They really want to capitalize. They're moving as fast as possible. When both of these mid laners are kind of in lane, they can push against one another. That right there was a faster move from the LeBlanc. It's going to cost a wave that's kind of pushed in. But because they were able to drive out sketch streams and they were able to get Trundle into bottom side that quickly, and they knew that RBM was on top side trying to punish the Jace as fast as possible, they get to drop Rift Herald on bottom side and break their Jhin out of this laning phase, get that initial tower take off the board of the map. That's gold being denied from AoE. That's gold into the pockets of your bot lane. And further, Maddie just kind of controlling this map away from AoE's possession. It's very, very good things from him and his Trundle thus far.
Now, I do want to focus and shift our focus a little bit into the other matchup too that we want to look at today here, Dean, right? That being the one between Strompus and Darkwings. Right? We're talking about how fantastic Maddie is doing, but I will pause as unfortunately Cozy looks to be in a little bit of trouble, but use the flash, he's A-OK. But yeah, looking back a little bit to that mid lane matchup, right? Strompus, right? We were saying that getting the LeBlanc first picks are already putting a lot of focus into him too, and we expected Darkwings to neutralize it and roam out though. But although Darkwings has been able to roam, like Strompus has been too, but not a ton has been able to neutralize from side of AoE, and Strompus kind of just been going where he pleases.
Strompus has been able to find a number of assists to help out in the fight. It would be nice if he could have picked up a kill, but most of the time he's on like the tail end of things, because again, he and Darkwings are pretty much just like neck and neck in terms of wave clear at the moment. Eventually, I think it's harder for LeBlanc to get the wave clear off, only because it's easy for Lissandra to just press Q, press E, and the entire wave is just essentially dead, which makes it easier for the Lissandra to eventually roam, but that has not been the case quite yet inside of the game. As well as Strompus, just like being able to use those distortions to get over walls is rather helpful. Darkwings has tried to at least put some pressure on. Right there actually burnt the flash of Cozy topside, which is what I wanted to see to begin, is just Lissandra roams as much as possible into the topside to put pressure onto Cozy's Jace to try to get Faisal ahead, that kind of thing. Didn't quite convert on it, but again, without a flash, that means that Faisal has a bit more ability to try to force something here. Nice hover from RBM is going to catch out this potential gank onto Faisal. They're just going to get driven away.
Yeah, you saw the wave was coming in as well, and considering he doesn't spot anybody across the entire map, right? Yeah, just managed to stave them off. But for now, that we can see just how much like attention's been given over to the top side, especially from the side of Supernova, to just be able to shut down Faisal, like you were mentioning. And considering how we're looking at it, like Jace is now just really being set up to be the carry going into the next 20 minutes of the game, though. He has the Eclipse, he's already building up the tier 2, so a lot of that has been pulled out with not a ton of resistances on the side of AoE.
So right here, I want to point out something that Supernova's doing very well. Bottom side, the tower got taken by Rift Herald, which was really good because that gives gold and it gives kind of long lane skill to work with. Darkwings.
Okay, a lot of damage. Yeah, a lot of damage. Only chunks it down to about half health though, but RB unfortunately doesn't lands that, flashes in, and yep, that is the clone, my friend. So, you know, you can't chase that for that. Was a little fun little hop from the frog.
Yeah, trying to find something as much as possible, but unfortunately not able to convert. Again, I wanted to talk about what was happening on bottom side and then the response on top side, because they took bottom tower, which allows for these long lanes. It drives Lissandra out of mid lane to roam a little bit faster or do something like that. But more importantly, you can see they muscled with Lynx and Clyde immediately after taking bottom tower into that top quadrant. Look at the ward coverage they've had for a little while. Even after one was swept in the right back of where the Rift Herald pit is right now, they've had those two wards around the red buff there for like the last 2 minutes straight. That provides so much coverage for Cozy to just kind of do as he pleases. It allows him to not get ganked. They get to see that from a mile away. They can kind of force things if they want to, but unfortunately because of the coverage from RBM just a minute ago, they weren't able to. But it bought so much time for Cozy and Maddie that they were now able to take top tower. All of that was basically just off the back of that vision control that they pulled away immediately after taking that bottom tower, knowing there wasn't a punishment to come back from the side of AoE.
Considered right as of right now, it was a punishment for AoE, though, although they are able to punish Supernova for trying to go up onto the Rift Herald. Instead, though, still, like you mentioned, all the top side setup is identifying so much here for Supernova, because look at all the pings coming out. They read exactly what they want to do, and considering they're not falling into it all, AOE just got to play a lot farther back. They have to go for the more the recess timers and just wait to scale up until they can try to go for these 5v5s. Is even though they take advantage of it. They saw the back timers, and Supernova made the run back onto the Rift Herald, which I imagine will likely be dropped into push mid in time for a Dragon.
Yeah, pushing mid in time for Dragon at minimum secures yourselves the ability to pull river pressure as fast as possible, which is why I like the AoE. They've stepped up already to put some shallow vision around, and for RBM to just kind of walk in, make sure that's there. The other thing is actually,
I mean, it takes
a little bit.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of damage. He's fine. Yeah, it's because again, look, RBM has a Divine Thunder, or Strong Pest isn't a tank. He's not dying. He's fine.
I was gonna say again, the setup right now around the mid tower, they should just go right now. They should drop Rift Herald right now in the mid lane as fast as possible. Not set up for the Dragon. They don't care about the Dragon. If you grab that mid, outer tower, you've got the entire outer ring. You know how much space this opens up for LeBlanc if you've got shallow vision to be able to go over walls and things. The amount of times that you can look for pick potential is humongous. Even better, they put that gold into Cozy's pocket. That means this chase continues to pull gold. That's kind of the main damage dealer in teamfights. They understand, and they've given him 2 full towers, as well as now being able to shift with all 5 members into the river. Supernova looking really, really cohesive. We talked about they really desperately need to have they work best as a well-oiled machine. All their parts are kind of in conjunction with one another. It seems like they've been able to crack the code. They look so much better than what we saw just last week against the side of Team Liquid Academy.
And that's the biggest thing about it, right? Like you're mentioning, it's last week it was a little bit all over the place here for Supernova. They were on different pages in some sorts, but with the Dragon being picked up right now, the engine of Maddie running, and the trails, or I should say train tracks of Supernova being set up, alongside Strumpus, alongside Cozy, there is a clear path being set up for them. And definitely though, they're looking to be on a well-oiled machine type of pace, considering the direction they are heading here, Dean. But it's a question right now is for AoE, right? They're left on the response side. They're just kind of losing objectives and neutral ones, especially across the entire map. Although gold hasn't necessarily ballooned anywhere though, what would you want to see out of AoE to try to get this game into a much more even state?
At the moment, they've kind of bled out at least a little bit. They are 1 dragon away from Soul, but Cloud Soul probably doesn't just bust this game completely open for Supernova. It is frustrating to have to deal with the ultimate from Trundle being up, and especially Strumpus, who can fish with his ultimate when you've got the Cloud Soul and you've got all the movement speed to work with on a number of champions. But I don't think it just immediately wins the game for them. AoE does, however, have to figure out how they can put enough gold into 2 of their main carries in Darkwings and Sketch Streams with this AoE type team fighting composition to really start to have an impact in some of these fights. Because you could go another 10 minutes. If you could stall the game 10 minutes, that's great. But if you stall the game another 10 minutes, are you really still going to be strong enough to take the 5-on-5 against the likes of Supernova is the question. Especially after they get Baron is going to be up on the board and they are stronger at the moment. They got the 3 dragons. Are you going to give up the soul point? Will you be able to fight after the soul point? And eventually Strumpus is going to be on more items. You don't want him to be able to pick off multiple members. So it's a response of AoE needs to put gold where they got gold. How do they do that without just continuing to bleed out at the pace that they currently are? Because if they give up, Soul Point, if they give up Baron, all of a sudden this 2,000 gold lead that's not that menacing starts to turn into 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, and this team fight's so much harder to execute on.
I think the answer comes in the side lanes, right? You want to make sure that although Darkwings gets as much farm as possible, they'll be consistently putting him, bot side too, to respond, because if they have a tower there, if they can crack open the top tower, then also at least gives Bezel some sort of outlet to be able to get some farm into him too, and then that way AoE become a lot scarier. Because as of right now, look at this, Cozy is already pushing top. He's actually threatening the tier 2, and no one from AoE is able to respond to this. The Supernova right now are 5-man in mid. They're backing off. This is going to be a free top tier 2 for him.
And it will. They have been giving a lot to Cozy. Oh, they're going to force the fire right
yeah,
now.
they're going to try to lock one down. The Lard as he put down, Gallia should be dead, but look at the backside though. You see Cozy already goes in. A single target damage, paying dividends. Psycho super low as Lynx is there. 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot, 4. There we go. Can he go ahead and get more? No, he has to reload. Unfortunately not. Lynx is running away. This is the painful part to Jin, where you're thinking like, I want to do something, but they can't. But luckily his team there is for the support. They managed to save them off though, but now Strumpus left on clean off duty. 4 members of Supernova gone, and this is the fight we wanted to see from AOE. Dean, are you there with me, Dean?
I just, like, across the board, I was just dumbfounded there for at least a little bit of time, because how many people did I see just get evaporated? Their health bars were, like, above 50%, and all of a sudden they were no longer above 50%. Oh, poor RBM.
Oh, there's another pop for you. There you go.
Did Clyde at least get an assist for that? Because his shield, did he just waste his whole
I want to think that he did. He has to. No, he probably didn't.
Huh?
And he's just left standing there protecting his honor. As look at this rim back here.
This is the first attempt from the side of AOE to really look the team fight, and you can see even when they're down gold, they still look really good. The biggest thing, Sketch Dreams right here, the setup onto Maddie and then the flash in with red and white guns is humongous to set up a team fight. Now, he does end up running out of white, which I think is a bit problematic, ends up shifting into pretty bad guns for the rest of the fight, and taking that shockwave was huge, but this is, again, kind of the strength of AOE. Again, what happened to Cozy's health bar? He was full health. Yeah. I don't know exactly why everybody hit him with everything all at once. This is the power that AOE has. When they're able to put these pieces and kind of put them together, when Sketch has enough gold, he can legitimately carry fights in significant fashion. You know, Dark Queens can carry fights in significant fashion. RBM was able to clean up a ridiculous amount of kills and now is quite powerful inside of these fights. But, again, when you're down this many neutral objectives, it's still difficult to try to force that. You do have the opportunity around these to try to force fights and things like that. But all it takes is Supernova kind of getting one fight to go really heavily in their favor. And all of a sudden, AOE is in dire straits because now they're down like the Cloud Soul, they're down a significant amount of gold, and you have to take these fights at even more of a disadvantage here. They're on the Dragon first, just trying to bait out a 5-on-5 team fight they believe.
They want this here, Dean, but look at that. There's a final curtain call. Zyko is gone. Okay, but got him before he can give the kill over to Lynx on the back end. RBM stuck inside the Dragon pit. Darkness goes into Dragon, not there as of yet, but damage coming out a lot on the backside. The Lynx still staying alive, has that crit shot. Sketch Dreams too.
I
Not as much damage as he can, but Clyde is gone. A double kill for Sketch Dreams. What? How is he just taking them all apart? Super okay. The pop in for Strumpus. At least he shuts down the ADC. He could try to get one more. Darkman's super low. One more Q. No. Basil is just pushing him away. He's gonna poke him down with the blade legs. But oh, the blast cone, the chain, and the death. Bye.
And out of what seems like almost nowhere, AOE Esports have found themselves a 5-man, an ace, off the back of a team fight, and the Dragon. They have now flipped the game back into a gold advantage. This is what they did in the previous week against the side of C9AM. It was a bit more ridiculous in that one. This started off with Zyko even being caught. I was really worried that they weren't going to be able to do anything. I know they wanted to start this Dragon, mostly so they could set up a team fight. Sketch also started the fight at half health. This looks so good for Supernova in so many ways. They put a lot of people into the pit. This kind of Infernal ultimate was humongous. Strumpus almost gets him, burns the shield bow and the Zonius, but nobody's putting damage into the pit. And so the 2 members that were there both get brought down by everybody else from AoE, while Sketchstreams is attempted to be brought down as fast as possible. And yes, Strumpus eventually gets that, but the lack of damage that's going into the members that are directly in front of, or instead of stalling things out, with things like the stopwatch, things like the ultimate coming out from the likes of the Lissandra, that's what we talked about, is the ability to stall the damage from Supernova when they're so single target heavy means that team fights are so much easier to take when you're on the side of AoE. It's been on display a number of times. That was one of the biggest moments of it. That stopwatch from the likes of Sketchstreams stalled that fight, stalled out Strumpus from putting damage into the targets inside of the pit that maybe would have turned that fight.
And when you are so single target heavy, right, I find you have to be able to account for momentum like that can just immediately stop everything you try to put out, though, because considering there has to be a certain target focus coming out for the side of Supernova just to make sure they can come on the top of these fights. But Basil looks to get aggressive a little bit, TP coming out as well, but the wave is pushing a little bit against him, so I don't know if they necessarily want this fight as they're putting a lot of people over. Darkwings gets away, and so does Basil, so yeah, they're all fine, they're okay.
Supernova, they're looking to try to generate some of these plays with like the cross map, because again, they have this Galio to be able to work with. They've got like Jhin ultimate to be able to set up from a very long distance, and they've got LeBlanc who can kind of cover a large amount of distance very quickly over walls and lapses of vision. They can find some plays. But again, it's not super easy to take just pure 5-on-5, so they are kind of desperate to find a few of these plays here and there. And it's making it difficult because, again, this game continues further and further as the gold ramps up for AOE, and it becomes so much more focused around some of these neutral objectives that Supernova has set themselves up to take. That's where AOE is really going to shine. They have to find some of this stuff that's off-tempo compared to what is normal. Otherwise, this composition from Supernova is so much harder to play out.
And AOE, they again are known as a godlike team fighting team, right? They know they prefer the 5v5s. That is what they are there to do and execute, especially like you're mentioning around the neutral objectives too. It's like we could see a lot more pop-offs where they come back into this game while being able to control the pace, because like this is a rematch, right, from the RCL group, where AOE actually went on to win that group against Supernova. So again, this entire day has just been full of redemption arcs and runbacks between both these teams.
It is. Not to mention, I mean, when your back is against the wall here, it would feel really bad for Supernova to play like the #1 seed in the tournament and then play AOE, who is like, you know, kind of touted as one of our top 3 semi-professional teams right in a row.
Yeah.
And they are putting up a very significant fight. Game's not over by any standard whatsoever, and we still have a best of 3 to play. But both these teams would be very, very traumatized to come out at this point. Supernova, it would be expected, but given the fight that they had just to get into this tournament, that amount of like tempo that they got from that alone was enough to kind of give us hopes and wishes about what they would be capable of doing.
Heroic entrance drops in to get the knockback to Zyko. Taki has to flash out though, but now RBM in trouble. Faze also running away too. Darkwings, all these options for them to just get out of dodge, so leaving a fair amount of lightly tapped health bars as Super could look towards the Baron as that was a big engage from Fire, so Hextech ultimatum as well on the backside. Actually putting on so much damage. Now Supernova on the back end too. Rock's flashing in. Rock's down one though. Looking at the Cozy. He's gone. There you go. Sharp as well has run away too. Clyde hiding in the bush as Supernova, AOE can't get the Baron, but they'll get mid-prio.
They won't. Ends up being, I think, just like all things said and done, the 1-for-1 as Faisal got traded off for Cozy. That ultimate from Faisal, I'm not sure if it ended up being a good thing or a bad thing, because he went halfway across the river, just like passing that on LeBlanc. He does at least pull Cozy out of the fight. And after all those ults have been burnt, a number of the health bars from Supernova were actually brought down. So Hero, I think in the back of this, like it was pretty obvious given the ultimate that was cast. Sketchstream's Moonlight Vigil did a ton of damage with the Infernum variant, and then the Moonfall immediately, or Duskwave, my apologies, immediately after to get the Gravitum, forced Supernova super far back. Now, they gotta go for Baron. They're gonna spot it out because they're on a ward right now. They don't have damage. There's a flank angle for Darkwings. This is not looking good.
Yeah, like Supernova right now just don't have the DPS without Cozy to be able to actually really threaten this Baron. And like you said, Darkwings able to pass out over the wall, though he's perfectly fine in general. But like if we are looking at potential Baron take here, Supernova needs everybody there as you look and get this replay on the top side.
And I guess, like, keep an eye, like, so many ultimates are burnt just at the initial parts of this. Like, you got not only, like, LeBlanc ultimate, Jhin ultimate's down, Trundle ultimate was burnt during this as well, and then Galio ultimate. So every single one of your big tools is used just in this fight alone, and you knock down a fair amount of health. This was the ultimate from Faisal that drags him halfway up the river. Really unfortunate for Faisal, but that Moonlight Vigil right there was enough to push out Maddie and Clyde, your 2 big frontliners, and it's what gave all this space for Sketchstreams and Darkwings to really force the issue and get into the river. Yes, you lost Faisal, but all of those health bars were also way too low, especially when Sketchstreams is full health, has 3 items, and hasn't been knocked out of the Guardian Angel. There's no way you win that fight, and it's what allows AOE to go for their second Cloud Drake, denying further the super objective setup that Supernova kind of built their entire early game.
And Dean, this has been twice now Sketchstreams has been able to have such large ultimates right? Because we were mentioning before in draft as well that like how are Supernova going to get to the back line of AOE? How are they going to punish, just when he has all the support and he can just chill and free fire away, especially with the type of competition that Supernova had? And the answer right now is they're not going to be able to, and it is costing them heavily.
It is. I will say they actually just pushed out a fair amount of vision. Were it not for the fact that that ward was sitting in the back of the Baron pit, I think they might have started it up. But unfortunately, because of course that ward did end up spotting out that they had just put down vision and they didn't quite have mid priority yet, they weren't willing to, and that allowed for a reset to come through from Zyko, who can now kind of come back out and they can compete for vision here in this topside quadrant, attempting to push back for Baron because of how difficult that it's been. Like Supernova want to be able to find a timer where they can take this without team fighting, because that's really the strength that AoE's been bringing, and they've lost the last couple against them. Here they're forcing the issue, but everyone's going to be here except Faisal. Faisal doesn't have TP. He has to come from such far distance away.
Zyko's is dead. Okay, oh, one more hit, but he's live. There we go. There's the auto. Strong Pest to be trying to clean them away. Sketch Dreams, they're fighting a 4v5. They know they'll get there in time. IBM has to run away. They're back and onto the Baron, but Faisal is here. So is Dark Wings. They'll say they could try to push the issue. Still a 4v5 rotate.
Again, Faisal is at least at the time now to come in. That's what Zyko was able to buy at least a minimum of. RBM is very well. The fight's
Taunt already. Onto one though, because the ultimatum on the backside. Yet again, Lynx to try to put as much damage as he can, but still, Sketch Dreams, it's super duper low. There's a GA. They're probably gonna get this Supernova. They're winning it on the team fight. They punch that where they need to. He's locked out. He's gone. They're dead. That's the ace essentially. And Zyko barely manages to come back, and they're TPing top lane.
Clutch Twin absolutely needed to right there. Not only the combination of Clyde ultimate, which knocked up 3 members, but also the ability to just push out Darkwings. Both of these two, between Clyde and Darkwings, kind of shoved off the fight from each one, but it allowed for kind of single target focus. It started with Lysandra and ended up going target by target by target, which allowed Supernova to really just use all this individual damage to kill one person at a time. It was a perfect fight setup. Zyko's not going to stall this, and Supernova's going to take game 1.
Oh my god, bro. Zyko got popped like a balloon, and there's darkness sets over the rift. Area of effect. Esports fall. The Supernova game number 1. What an explosive game.
It was AoE winning team fight. All it took was the one big one for Supernova. That's the benefit. They were able to capitalize on it. It was Zyko going down at the beginning. Didn't cost them the fight necessarily. But again, Sketch Dreams, they finally found somebody to get onto him into the backline. That was Clyde being able to use that ultimate, deny him damage into the team while Sketch Dreams, or my apologies, while Darkwings was trying to stall on the front with Lysandra. And while he did buy time, again, being able to focus down the person in front of them and then the next person and the next one is what that composition was built to do. And it's what allowed them to continue and win that fight outright. Sketch Dreams had no chance to fight against that many members at once on his own quite yet inside of that fight. And man, what a game 1 from Supernova. They're our 16th seed. They just came out beat AoE in game 1.
Right? Just like after what was a very rough game up against TL, it makes sense at the first seed. But yeah, one main team fight, early game dominance, and getting in onto Sketch Dreams. Like crucial stuff here for Supernova. But Dean, we'll cut it to a short break. When we come back though, we'll see more out of these two squads.